We're going to talk about the next crypto bull cycle. When is it happening? Today is the 1st of June. We are pretty much halfway through the year. It has been a bit sluggish, a bit boring for the most part in terms of the altcoins. But in today's video, I want to talk about the main obvious thing of that bull cycle and my market prediction. What I think could be still happening from previous cycles, previous data. So if you enjoy this, leave a like. It helps. But let's get on with halving. Halving is the most obvious thing that's coming. Digital representation on the screen of how it will look. Now, when we look at 2012, the first halving, not a big effect on the price. However, the beginning of 2013, it massively grew. But the big problem with all this was Mt. Gox. Mt. Gox was the only thing, even though you were wiring your Japanese mail, your checks to Japan basically to get your Bitcoin, which is crazy at the time. It was 90% of the entire industry, essentially. So yeah, very, very interesting. But you can see here what happened. $12.42, 946. So yeah, you can see what's happened. But this is kind of the thing that happened anyways, right? Again, if we go to 2016, the period where I was getting involved in the space a very, very long time ago, 100 days later, nothing really happened. But what you often find as well is, prior to a halving, there's always a little, as you can see here, a little bit of a run up here, right? Nothing massive, but still a little bit of a run up. Then obviously the halving happened. But a year later, every single time that word 1 year later is going to become pretty important. And then when we look at 2020, similar sort of situation, $8,000. We had a run up beforehand, and then we kind of just consolidated for a long time, and then we started going up. But price 1 year later, we're going to look at that because it's not on this screen. But you get the idea, right? So if we're looking at basically the 11th of May, 2021. Actually, hold on a minute. That was literally the market top. That was one of the biggest. That was before that big move down. I'm pretty sure. Sorry, I've just totally kind of thought of that date. Let's have a look. I'm pretty sure that is this peak. It's near this peak. So if we're looking back here, so there's the 10th of May there. So that's a week of the 10th of May. Sorry, this is totally off cue. Just, you know, I don't plan my videos, by the way. Just for reference sake, where we are. So, yeah. So this was the first market top that we had, the first blow off, and we had that big massive correction. So the 10th of May was actually here. And we were currently $58,100. Wow. So that gives you an idea of how that 1 year later date is massive. But again, when we look at the past, look at the amount of growth that we get every single time on the 1 year later graph. That was massive, by the way. So what next? Well, that's the thing. Halving brings a big element to Bitcoin. It's called scarcity. That scarcity is huge. When we look at the overall price, when we look back at these bigger time frames again, bear with me. I don't want to go that low, Christ. You can see that after every single time, there's always a bit of a run and a big run and a big pullback. And then we're getting towards a point where this point here, in April 2024, where my cursor is where the next halving is, right? We may well get a run up beforehand. We may not. We may get a nice run up and then it may consolidate, then it may go up for another run. Now, this is where my predictions will come in. We have had the same sort of situation as I've just shown you there every single time. That 1 year later, it's always very good. Which is why this title, this video is pretty important, that you have got time to accumulate some cryptocurrency assets currently. Between the next 12 months, you have got time. And then we got to think, what do you do? Well, you just sit and wait. You sit on your hands. I would say to most people now, you've got 12 months to consolidate a position in the market, right? There has been prior months before. I've been in the market for a very long time. And if we look back at the normal cycle rate, where you've got, let's just start from the bull cycle. So you've got bull cycle, you've got bear cycle, you've got the consolidation phase, which I think we are in right now. And then you've got the reset. The reset is usually the lead up to halving, and then it kind of continues in that 4 year cycle. Nothing's changed within that yet, and nothing could indicate that we are changing, because when we look at altcoins, when we look on the weekly time frame on a lot of altcoins, so let's look at AVAX, for example. a lot of altcoins actually look like this. Cardano. Now, Cardano is a very popular one, and it also had the same situation in the previous cycle. A lot of assets look like this, where they're just sitting there on a massive consolidation range. They're not moving much. Nothing's happening. There's no clear direction on these higher time frames because nothing is really happening. The interest is low. This is where people get grinded out of the market slowly, right? So my advice to most people would be stick in it, and eventually someone will call you lucky. I was lucky in the fact that I bought certain assets in the previous cycle. 2020, I was buying stuff. I still bought stuff in 2019 as well, and I was just sitting there, praying it would go up. And the reality is, eventually it did, once everything kind of all came out. We obviously need a catalyst, we need some interest, but the one thing that interest always gives us is Bitcoin with scarcity. Now, I've pinpointed this level before in the past in previous videos. Now, obviously ignore this Fibonacci for now. But when we're looking at these previous levels and these big structure points, is that going to be the level that gets the retail back in? And Bloomberg, CNBC, whoever promoting all this kind of stuff will send it. Will Tesla eventually accept Bitcoin? For example, random example, will Apple do something? Will Google do something more with crypto, right? There is a lot of hopium for a potential catalyst, but for me, there has to be a price point where it will change, right? So in terms of my prediction, I still think we are following the same path. That's my personal belief. So if I put a horizontal line here, bear with me, where's my horizontal line? Oh, actually, tell you what I'll do. Bear with me. Horizontal, vertical line. So if we're looking at halving, which is roughly, we'll go 1st of April, which is roughly here. We've still got a lot of time, right? And as I say, right, if we are going to be in a lull for the rest of the year, fair enough. Personally, I think Q4 is going to be an important one because we may get a run up towards halving and we may get more interest. But what could happen in that situation is BTC dominance may well get a bit of a brutal hit. We may well go up. I've already pinpointed these sort of levels up here that could be hit in terms of certain situations, certain reasonings, believing in that. But for me, the next cycle could be starting off here, where we're going to these certain levels of dominance, and then we go much lower. So yeah, that overall is what I think. I think overall, if you're in the market and you're buying solid projects, they will be a bit of a kick at some point, mainly due to having it. There's been no reasons for us to believe otherwise, right? Scarcity, and absolute scarcity, which what Bitcoin brings in a financial, wait for it, I'm not going to say recession, uncertainty could lead to a bit of a run. So when we're talking about the debt limit, when we're talking about high inflation rates, when we're talking about interest rates, market uncertainty, gold, all that kind of stuff, we may well find that Bitcoin may well pop a bit earlier than we would like, maybe. So we'll have to see where it goes. But for me, if we're looking at BTC dominance alone, it wouldn't surprise me if we're going to the 50%. I'm not thinking 60. I think that's too ambitious. I think Ethereum's far too big for that. That's 20% of the market. The stable currencies are also nearly 11% of the market as well. So if we have a situation, you're going to find that certain things such as this will probably go up. So we've got to look at that as a factor. But yeah, for me, I think this could happen where we go high and then into these 30% levels. That is my market prediction for BTC dominance. If we're looking at the total market cap, this is my kind of little fair value and black swan box, which is crazy, I know. But I've already mentioned this in previous videos. I think there's a massive take profit level up here and potentially even higher, right? Now, yes, we're $1.09 trillion right now. What if we go to 4.4 trillion? Yes, huge. You should be. If you're in the market now and you've bought and you're exposed and you are not taking profit at that point, give yourself a slap, because some of your assets should be doing very well. If we go much higher than that, obviously there's other take profits, but they are very much up in the air and very wishy-washy, but you just don't know. That is all we've got to go on in terms of Fibonacci sequences with rough numbers. But the problem with this indicator alone, not so much the indicator, but more the fact of the data that we're seeing in the total market cap, more coins equals more liquidity and more pumpamental volume that may well inflate that data a little bit. You know what happens when a new coin comes on the market, it's worth 7 billion all of a sudden. Wow, where's that came from? You just got to look at that as a fact. But if that does happen, it'd be awesome, right? So yeah, you might be watching this video in the future and you're thinking, oh, he was right, wasn't he? or I might be completely wrong. But until otherwise, we don't know what's going to happen, do we? You cannot predict markets, unfortunately. However, you can look at the past and you can see what's happened in the past, and everything that we're looking at right now hasn't changed, right? So we just got to follow it, realistically, as risky as that sounds. Anyways, enjoy.